At this point in time, welcome, and I have to say this. There's more quality here in this meeting today than I've ever seen in my career of 20 years. Well, kind of. Anyway, call the meeting to order. Tonight, we're going to receive the manager's recommended fiscal year 2019-2020 operating and capital investment plan budget. And with that, I'm going to take a nap. I'm going to turn it over to our town manager, Randy Harrington.
I certainly hope I don't put you to sleep, but thank you, Mayor, and thank you, members of council. For those of you who, any residents who may be in the audience or those watching on video, my name is Randy Harrington, and it's my pleasure to serve as your town manager. It's also my pleasure this evening, on behalf of the entire organization, to recommend to you the fiscal year 2019 to 2020 recommended operating and capital budget, which we'll cover here this evening. Before I begin, I do want to comment on a couple items that you have at your place setting. First off, you do have a copy of the presentation and as well a full book, the budget book, that looks a little bit different than what you may have recalled from previous years. And the design of the book is to outline all the key changes that are in the budget, and you'll see many of those outlined in the manager's transmittal letter, along with the following budget summary section. And then in the individual department pages, you'll also see what changes have occurred in the particular budget, in particular areas of the budget. But just wanted to highlight that for you at this particular point. So we'll go ahead and begin here this evening. So just a brief overview. Again, the purpose of tonight is to receive the manager's recommended fiscal year 2019 to 2020 budget. And throughout the presentation, you may hear me reference this as simply the FY20 budget. There'll be four core areas that we'll cover. First off, an overview and budget development approach. Second, some budget highlights. And with this, I'll start first at a high level with the overall total budget for the organization. And then we'll move into the general fund, then utility and stormwater fund, and then capital. We'll also cover a few other recommendations, and these include items related to employee pay and benefits, as well as a recommendation to change your general fund balance policy. And then finally, we'll wrap up with a few final thoughts and some conclusions. So a few key takeaways. The budget begins building upon the new strategic plan that you adopted on April 21st, 2019. Second, as with many of the budgets that you've approved in the past, public safety is a core municipal government role, and public safety remains a top investment area in the recommended budget. There's also continued investment in infrastructure. And I recommend a 5-cent property tax rate increase, which is dedicated to pay for voter-approved 2018 transportation bond projects. One of the pieces that I'll note is that this recommendation, this is only the second time in the past 25 years that there has been a property tax rate increase, both of those tagged to bond referenda. And then finally, we know that municipal services are delivered through our amazing employees. And this budget reflects a strong level of investment in employees and our reputation as an employer of choice. And when I refer to that notion of employer of choice, what I'm talking about is that we are regarded as a great and highly desirable place to work. I think we all know that Holly Springs is a wonderful place to live. That's why I'd like to think we're all here. And I think there's a couple of themes from the accolades that we have received over the last number of years. First is that we are a safe town, very important. Second, that we are an affordable town in terms of overall cost of living makeup. And that we are a community where people want to move here for the quality of life. And this budget builds on these themes and community qualities. The budget starts with town strategy as the foundation. And the town strategy, I've referred to this before as a roadmap. It's a roadmap to guide priorities, resource allocations, policy development, and guide staff efforts. And your vision for Holly Springs is to offer an unmatched quality of life that reflects the joys of small town living in a safe, family-friendly community that residents and businesses are proud to call home. There are 5 priority areas, strategic priority areas that you have identified. These include 1, economic prosperity and diversity; 2, engaged, healthy, and active community; 3, organizational excellence; 4, responsible and balanced growth; and safe and friendly. I'm also really pleased and excited tonight to publicly roll out for the first time our set of core values. Over 1/2 of our employees, of the employees in our organization, have participated in focus groups and in dialogue sessions, as well as online surveying to develop as well as select those core values that are most important, those behaviors that we believe are most important in displaying every day. So our commitment to each other and the community around 5 areas. 1, accountability. We own our work and are responsible for our actions. Next, compassionate excellence. We provide exceptional service, treating everyone with respect, dignity, and courtesy, while continuously striving to take ourselves and our team to new levels. Creativity. Innovation thrives through diversity of thought, curiosity, and trying new ideas. Integrity. We're trustworthy, ethical, and honest always. Teamwork. We seek opportunities to collaborate and build positive relationships with each other and the community. And again, I just want to comment, these were developed by staff and with a high level of engagement, and really proud of the work that the whole entire organization did in developing these. Let me also talk a little bit about the budget development approach, and I'll share a few highlights for how it was created. You know, every budget cycle begins with a level of scrubbing the budget, and this year certainly is no different than prior years. We also did but a higher level of significant scrubbing of current expenditures to identify the true base budget. And what I'm getting at here is that we looked real closely to any previous one-time expenditures that no longer need to be in the budget. We also looked at areas where we may have had idle funds, and to try to maximize and pull those into the ability to be reappropriated for other uses, and really trying to get to what is that core base budget from a starting point in developing the recommendation here tonight. That effort maximizes budget availability for new priorities and service needs, and it begins tying available resources and expenditures to strategic priorities. This slide highlights the population growth in our community. And the reason why I think it's important just to see what is the level of service demand that we're getting from increased growth. So on the left side of the chart, you have population on the vertical axis there. And on the right side of the graph, you have the total number of town employees. And then you have the kind of the hashed area on the 2019. We think that it's possible that close to this year will be close to 40,000 residents possible in our community. And so when you match up that population growth along with what's the growth in staffing, I think this demonstrates that there has been and continues to be an appropriate level of staffing. That rate of growth in staffing is commensurate with what you would see in terms of a growing community. So now I'd like to transition into some of the budget highlights. And here again, I'm going to start at a real high level from a total budget perspective. Then we'll move into the general fund, then the utility and stormwater fund, and then we'll move into some capital highlights. So starting off the total budget, it's $65,183 million. And where does that money come from? And the majority, or not a majority, but most of those funds come from ad valorem or property taxes. You see close to $24 million. Next are water and wastewater sales, and then other taxes and licenses. And most of this is comprised of sales taxes in this particular category. But then you also see the other categories of various revenues that make up the total $65 million. When you look at the expenditure side, again, total all services in the government, public safety comes to $13.3 million. General government, which includes really about 7 departments, finance, HR, information technology, legal, administration, communications and marketing, and the governing body, totals about $9.7 million. And then parks and recreation, approximately 7.6. And then debt service, other development, and you see the other components of where the money goes in the recommended budget. Now, this particular slide carves out, again, total, all components of the budget. Where are the new expenditures going? And we've outlined this in a way that reflects your strategic priorities. And with this, then you see that the majority or most of the revenue or the expenditures, the new capital and operating, is going to safe and friendly community. And I'm going to talk about those in just a little bit more. You'll see some of the examples that make up that. And then organizational excellence, much of that is reflected in the pay and benefits plan that's associated with the budget. But this gives you a sense from an allocation standpoint where new resources have been tagged in the recommended budget. Now I want to transition a little bit into discussion of just the general fund and general debt service. And when I talk about general fund, I'm really talking about basic municipal services, what you might commonly think of as police, fire, solid waste, transportation, planning and zoning, and parks and recreation, and there's others in there too. And so this is the general fund operating and general debt service. When you look at this particular graph, you see the debt service component of about $6.8 million. And 2 pieces of this. One, you've got a component of existing debt service on projects and debt that this council and previous councils have approved. And then you also see reflected the new component related to debt service related to the 2018 transportation bond projects. Moving down into general fund operations, that totals $38.1 million. Again, most of the revenues in that particular area related to ad valorem or property taxes on real and personal property. Other taxes and licenses, and you see the other examples of the types of revenues that come into the general fund. And then on the other side, on the right side of the graph, you see the expenditures, where the money goes. And then in general fund operations, you have public safety, again, a high area comprised primarily of police and fire, parks and recreation, general government, public works, and then development services. Within the general fund, there are 2 key recommended revenue changes. The revenue changes reflect investments for voter-approved 2018 transportation bond projects and the cost of doing business in refuse, recycling, and yard waste. I think, as many of you recall, during the fall, education for the 2018 transportation bond, at that time, it was outlined that an estimate of a 5-cent property tax rate increase would be required to fund those voter-improved investments. And this budget reflects that statements that were made in the fall. So from the property tax per $100 valuation, the recommendation is for the rate to increase from 43.25 cents to 48.25 cents. And again, that's a 5-cent difference. And again, as I mentioned at the start of the presentation, this is only the second property tax rate increase in the past 25 years. So it would be this one, and then the property tax rate that the council did in 2012, a 2-cent increase related to parks and recreation bonds. On the refuse and recycling side, recommend combined a total of about $1.07 per month, and that reflects just natural CPI cost inflation associated with the collection, as well as the impact on recycling there's been a dramatic shift in the recycling market, and many of you have heard about that. You've read information and stories about what might, the impacts from China and some of the decisions it's made relating to accepting recyclables from the United States. It has caused a significant shift in the market, and this reflects an 18% increase from the private hauler in order to continue to collect recycling at the current collection service levels. I also want to highlight to you a property tax rate comparison. And even with the recommended property tax rate increase, Holly Springs remains very competitive in the Wake County region. As you see from this, the blue bars represent the fiscal year 19, the current year tax rates for other peer and other governments in the Wake County region. And then the green components represent other city or county manager proposed tax rate increases. There might be others. There may be a couple others out there who haven't recommended their budgets yet. But of the ones we know, you have one in Garner, Holly Springs, and Wake County, which you've heard about. And as you see from this, Holly Springs right in the middle of those other peer jurisdictions. I also recommend the delineation or dedication of the property tax rate into general fund operating and general debt service. And so you see in the table on the top, the current FY 2019 rate, you have the total there, the 43.25 cents. And then for FY 20, the way that this would be delineated in the budget is 36.25 cents of that total rate would go to general fund operations. 12 cents would go to general debt service. And this 12 cents is comprised of two pieces. One is 7 cents that's already going to existing debt service, plus the 5-cent property tax rate recommended increase that would go toward the 2018 transportation bonds. So that's 7 cents of existing plus the 5 cents of proposed allocates a total of 12 cents of the property tax rate toward debt service. Again, the net difference in all of that, again, is that 5 cent total recommendation for increase. So why do this? There are really 4 key reasons. One is that this is a best practice approach for capital budgeting and debt management. 2, it's viewed favorably by credit rating agencies and the North Carolina Local Government Commission. And this will be especially important for when the town next sells remaining Parks and Recreation bonds, as well as the 2018 transportation bonds in the debt market here in the coming next couple of years. Also, a dedicated funding stream strengthens the capital budget planning practices, and it increases predictability from that standpoint. And then finally, it provides the opportunity for what I would call a natural growth in new debt affordability that will mitigate the need in future years for property tax rate increases to address facility, transportation, and parks and recreation infrastructure needs. Now I'd like to transition into the general fund expenditures. So try to get down, again here I'm going down in levels and getting a little bit more specific on what are some of those key highlighted expenditures. This does not include everything that's in the budget, but I wanted to highlight a few of the key notables. First, in the area of economic prosperity and diversity. We have 2 components here, one related to economic development website update, and then economic development site recertification. Both of these are to enhance the marketability for industrial development and job growth. The next area, engaged, healthy, and active community. I'd like to recommend a Parks and Greenway planner to enhance staff expertise, to plan for updates to current amenities, future amenities, and ensure new development maximizes integration into other parks and recreation infrastructure and infrastructure plans. In organizational excellence, recommending an automated council and planning board meeting agenda development software. This is really focused on increasing staff efficiencies in terms of the product that's produced for your and the planning board meetings. There are also 4 support positions recommended under organizational excellence. And these are all to address higher workload serving other departments in our organization. I also recommend a fleet services manager to centrally manage the town's 243 vehicles and the 23 motorized equipment that require procurement, maintenance, and then surplusing at the end of their life. In the area of responsible and balanced growth, enhanced levels of funding for tree maintenance and preservation, and also a yard waste technician to increase resources for yard waste collection. The Unified Development Ordinance, or the UDO, recommending a rewrite, Phase 1. We anticipate probably 2 years associated with funding to update the UDO to ensure that the UDO reflects the new land use plan that you will consider upcoming here this fall. I also recommend a transportation planner due to increased growth and the complexity of our transportation network to ensure that new development also seamlessly integrates with other town infrastructure and maximize the impact of forthcoming 2018 transportation bond projects. Then also, in responsible and balanced growth, there's growth in refuse and recycling collection costs, which I outlined just a little bit earlier. Under safe and friendly, in this particular strategic priority area, we have 6 new police officers and 1 new recommended school resource officer, and that school resource officer would be subject to a suitable grant reimbursement arrangement with the Pine Springs Academy. 3 fire engineers are recommended to move closer to the national recommended staffing levels, and also 1 new fire inspector related to increased inspection workloads. So overall summary here for the general fund expenditures, highlighted by strategic priority area. And again, you see heavy investment on the safe and friendly, as well as the organizational excellence. And about 16% of those recommendations relate to responsible and balanced growth. And then you might note that economic prosperity and diversity and engaged, healthy, and active community, they might look a little bit smaller on the operating side, but I think you'll see here in just a few minutes, they will gain a higher share of the pie when we look at the capital expenditure side that will be impacting those particular areas. So, to wrap up this general fund section of the presentation, as a resident, what do you get for your general fund property tax and solid waste fees? Always a common question. What is it that you get for the taxes and fees that you pay? And so what we've created here is an example Holly Springs taxpayer receipt. And in this receipt, we have a median home value of $265,000. This value was calculated according to the Wake County tax assessor's most recently available data. And again here, when we say the median home value, what we're talking about is that middle point. Half of the homes in Holly Springs are less than $265,000, and half are greater than $265,000 in value. So this pegs it right at the middle. And in that, the homeowner pays approximately $1,281. And then you see the various component breakouts for what is that, what components of local government does that fund in the general fund? You've got police, fire, general government, existing debt, and then new debt associated with the 2018 transportation bond, parks and recreation, public works, development services, and then residents pay a solid waste fee, and that's the annual figure of $123.78, and an annual yard waste fee of $36. So in this particular example, the total receipt comes to $1,441. And let me put that into perspective for you just for a second. When you think about that total cost, and what is it on a per day basis to receive all these services? And it comes to $3.95 per day. That's about the price of a caramel macchiato at Starbucks. So for that price, $3.95 per day, you get access, residents receive access to 131 miles of roadways in our community. It's not listed on here, but also 127 miles of sidewalk, 17 and a half miles of greenways, 573 acres of parkland, 69 sworn police officers, about 17 per shift, 57 firefighters on duty in that particular day, 19 per shift. It also includes investment in roads, new roads, parks and recreation, and town facilities. And then also refuse, recycling, and yard waste. And as you recall, refuse once a week collection, and then on recycling and yard waste once every 2 weeks. So you think about all those components that residents have access to, and what I'd like to suggest is that this is a strong value for our residents in terms of what services and amenities we receive in our community. All right, so jumping off of the general fund, now I'd like to transition away from it and discuss the utility and solid waste fund. And when I reference the utility fund, what I'm talking about are sewer and water components. And then on the stormwater side, really talking about our management of water runoff, erosion, and water quality. And when you look at this particular graph, when you look at the utility fund, totals $19.1 million in water sales and wastewater sales make up the largest component of the revenue in that particular fund. And then on the expenditure side, the right side, investments in capital, in the capital investment plan, other water operations, debt service, and wastewater operations. In the stormwater fund, it totals $986,000, and that's comprised of environmental fees along with transfers from the general fund and development fees. And then on the operating side goes to support staff and other various operations associated with the stormwater program. Looking at this in a little bit more detail, for some highlights in the utility and stormwater fund, I'm recommending a water quality lab analyst to address workload and testing requirements. Also, a dedicated utilities engineer to provide a fully dedicated engineer supporting increased growth and complexity of the water, wastewater, and reclaimed water engineering needs. The budget recommends a 1.85% water and sewer rate increase. I will note that it has been historically practiced that these increases reflect the CPI rate. In this particular year, the CPI rate is 3.7%. But in reviewing the budget, I believe that this is a year, given some of the other tax and fee increases, to try to keep this piece as minimal as we can. And so this 1.85% increase equates to, for the typical user, 83 cents per month in increased fees. Also recommending stormwater drainage rehab projects of roughly $250,000. I think it's important when you look at our water sewer rates to also compare how do we look to others in our region and those across the state. And I would suggest to you that the town of Holly Springs compares very favorably with our other peers. Assuming the 1.85% rate adjustment and a usage of about 5,000 gallons per month, when you look at that 50-mile radius in the first picture of the state graphic on your left, the average bill comes to $77.10. When you increase that radius to 100 miles, that average bill is $76.75. And then when you look across the state as a whole, it's $76. For Holly Springs, the total new bill would be $70.63 per month for the typical user. And again, that equates to $2.32 per day. And you think about what you do for $2.32 per day. That includes showers, that includes washing clothes, that includes drinking and cooking, and it might even include watering your plants and flowers on your patio or front or back porch. So the average Holly Springs customer would be essentially 7 to 10% lower than other utility customer averages within the 50, 100, and mile radius as well as statewide. The last area that I would like to go into some detail on are capital investment highlights, again by strategic priority area. And again, I'll start with economic prosperity and diversity. I'm recommending sewer infrastructure to improve the Oakview Innovation Site readiness and to open the Green Oaks Technology Center for commercial and industrial development. And I think that you have heard that infrastructure can be a key economic development recruitment differentiator. And this funding would be subject to a suitable development partnership to increase, again, marketability for industrial development, to diversify our tax base and grow jobs. In the engaged, healthy, and active community strategic priority area, I'm recommending a Parks and Recreation Master Plan to replace the 2007 Beyond the Green Plan, and also to increase funding for greenway signage and maintenance to enhance the user experience on our greenways. Under organizational excellence, recommending the final phase of the CityView community development software to improve our internal processes as well as the experience for the development community. Recommending $10,000 for a 311 customer service study, and I'm really proud to say that this is a partnership with Apex and the towns of Apex and Fuquay-Varina. Both those two managers from those organizations have committed to $10,000 as well to do a joint study to identify what service models are out there and what technology related to 311 type of customer service models, and to see might there be any opportunities for our three towns to share in any infrastructure or operating costs that can make this type of concept easier and cheaper for all three communities. So I'm excited to share that with you this evening. Also recommending phase one of the HVAC replacement in Town Hall. This building, it may not look like it, but it's a little bit over, I think, 15 years old. And we have original HVAC equipment. We have 4 main units that support the building. And this phase would address at least 2 of those units, and then doing a second phase in a subsequent fiscal year. There's also heavy investment in public works service equipment to replace aging equipment and reduce downtime and improve customer service. Of note, this includes a new knuckle boom truck, a new leaf truck, a new dump truck, and a tractor mower. In responsible and balanced growth, recommending stormwater drainage rehabilitation of $250,000. Also doing 2 different types of master plans. One related to the stormwater drainage watershed master plan, and that's required to apply to receive Environmental Protection Agency, US EPA, water quality grants, and to assess our current flood and water quality issues. Also recommending a wastewater treatment plant master plan. And this would be to assess the current capacity and future demand and treatment needs, timelines, and projected costs to increase our treatment capacity at the Utley Creek wastewater treatment facility. And then with safe and friendly, recommend the engine replacement of a 1995 Pierce engine. Also, the final phase of police radio replacements to ensure reliable communications for our public safety officers. And then police vehicle replacements equating to 6 replacement vehicles, replacing existing vehicles, just to clarify. So again, just to summarize the capital in this portion, where by strategic area are they allocated? And again, you see here, safe and friendly, about 34% of those expenditures. Responsible and balanced growth, about 18%. In the organizational excellence category, $890,000. Engaged, healthy, and active community, almost $500,000 or 12%. And then in economic prosperity and diversity, a little over $500,000 or 13%. Let me add one additional note about capital investments. Earlier I noted that the 5-cent property tax rate increase is dedicated to transportation bond projects. And these are the projects that would be funded with that dedicated 5-cent property tax rate increase. You have essentially 9 projects. There are 6 projects associated with town-only funded transportation bond projects: Holly Springs Road widening, Main Street turn lane, North Carolina 55 turn lane, Avent Ferry to Main Street, Grigsby Avenue improvements, Avent Ferry Road realignment, and Estes Lane connection. There are also 3 other projects that we would envisioning partnering with other entities, primarily North Carolina Department of Transportation. And these road investments would include Sunset Lake Road widening, Holly Springs Road widening from NC 55 to Main Street, and NC 55 turn lane at Holly Springs Road to Avent Ferry. So these would be the capital projects that are proposed to be funded with the proposed property tax rate recommendation. Finally, this evening, I have 2 other recommendations. Both of these are related to organizational excellence, and the first one is related to investment in employees and our reputation as an employer of choice. In order to boost professional leadership development, investment in employee professional development increases from approximately 1.7% of the payroll to 2.3% of payroll. When you look at best practices, many experts suggest that you should be in a range of 2 to 3% of your payroll dedicated to travel training, professional development, excellence, so that you ensure that your workforce is gaining new skills, new knowledge, and able to innovate and bring new creative ideas to the organization. This increase is spread across all departments in the town. I also recommend several enhancements to increase our job market competitiveness. This includes a 1.6% cost of living adjustment, plus a 3.25% merit pool with an eligible range of 0 to 4%. Also, new 6 weeks paid leave for maternal paternal leave for the birth or adoption of a child. Next, reducing the cost to employees for optional health plan coverages. New wellness incentive option to reduce the premiums even further. And adjusting the town's paid holiday schedule to the state of North Carolina's schedule, which results in always having a 3-day holiday for Christmas break. I think we are maybe the only, or maybe one of only a couple that do not follow this schedule in Wake County. And currently, depending on the day of Christmas, in the past, the town has provided either a 2 or 3 day. This would lock it in at a 3-day, same as the state schedule. And I want to apologize. I know on this side there's a lot of data, but I want to tell you the full story on how we've made healthcare plan options more affordable for our employees. And let me start by first talking about our current plan. And in our current plan, we have 4 health plan tiers. There's an employee-only component, there's an employee plus spouse, an employee plus child or children, and then employee plus family. And so currently, in the current plan, the employee has no cost share in the employee-only portion. The employee plus spouse is close to $636. Employee plus children, $415. And employee plus family is $1,105. Now, if we had taken this exact plan and transposed it and done no changes based off of the increases from our private health insurer, we would have these particular rates. Again, the employee only at 0, but you see the increases that would occur for employee plus spouse, employee plus children, and employee plus family. And in particular, that employee plus family component going to a little over $1,300. One of the things that I would note, as I have talked with departments and employees, one of the very consistent pieces of feedback that I receive very consistently is concern about the high cost of some of our optional healthcare plans. And so I'm proud to say that through a lot of staff work, we have worked on some ways to try to address this and hopefully make an impact and make healthcare more affordable for our employees. So when you look going forward in terms of what the recommended budget includes, and in fact, let me start over here on the right side, on the very right side. Under the new plan, if you're an employee that is not in the wellness program, the employee share goes to $52.19, employee plus spouse, $575, the employee plus children to $415, and employee plus family to just under $1,000. Now, I mentioned earlier that there's also an option if employees sign up for wellness, that there's an opportunity for some additional cost savings. And if employees sign up for those wellness options, the employee only would go back to a 0 cost share. Employee plus spouse, you see there at $522. Employee plus children at $363. And employee plus family at $946. So I think you see from this particular layout a significant adjustment in the overall cost share of what the town pays. You also see that on this particular chart. And essentially, what this equates to is the town increasing its subsidy of the optional health plans to close to 20%. And so what are the key components of this then? Really, the key things to note are that this makes this more affordable health care for our employees. Some of the other key changes in the recommended plan: higher total deductible costs and out-of-pocket maxes, but lower cost copays for doctor visits and lower cost prescription drug options. One other area I'd like to note under organizational excellence is your general fund balance policy. The general fund balance is essentially your savings account, which is used for emergencies or other unforeseen or unique opportunities that you just didn't anticipate. Your current policy states a minimum of 10% of general fund expenditures to hold in your savings. And what I'd like to recommend to you tonight is a targeted range between 20 and 25% of general fund expenditures with a minimum of 20%. Any reserves beyond 20% may be used for one-time uses. And as a, as a reference point, the actual fund balance level as of June 30, 2018 was 21%. So you're right in that window, so you're right in it. But from a policy standpoint and a policy statement, this would strengthen your position and again, help us, one, prepare for emergencies, and two, ensure that we have the types of components that will be looked upon favorably by credit rating agencies when we sell future transportation and parks and recreation bonds. And to also note that the budget includes no use of fund balance, which would be a best practice approach. So let me wrap up. In conclusion, it's sometimes unclear to residents what their total annual tax and fee impact is for all town of Holly Springs services. And I'd like to help hopefully clarify this impact. And we've structured this along 3 example categories, but of course there are a variety of values in our community. But when you look on the 4 categories of investments that residents make in their community: property taxes, refuse and recycling yard waste fees, the water and sewer charges, and then the stormwater fee. So for a home that's valued at $100,000, the annual payment is $1,434. You see the various breakdowns then for monthly and daily. Daily for that particular household is $3.93. You see at the $250,000 level, that comes to $5.91 per day. And then if you were to equate that or extrapolate that out, if you had a home value of $450,000, that total daily total tax and fee impact equates to $8.56. In summary, the budget begins building upon the new strategic plan, and again, that roadmap for the direction of our organization and the community. Public safety, again, remains a top budget investment area. I think you saw that by the level of investment in new policing and fire personnel and equipment. It also continues your investment in infrastructure, and most importantly, a 5-cent property tax rate increase dedicated to pay for voter-approved 2018 transportation bond projects. It has a strong level of investment in employees, and what I believe increases our reputation as an employer of choice in the region and the state. So let me say a few words of thank you. And let me begin by saying thank you to you, Mayor, and the Town Council for your leadership and guidance throughout this entire budget process. And I will say for your willingness and your excitement to try some new things in this particular development approach. I also want to thank our assistant town managers, Daniel Weeks and Scott Chase, particularly for their instrumental role in the strategic planning process, and to also acknowledge Kendra Parrish, who also played an important role in helping us on that front. I want to thank our senior leadership team and department staff, who are really amazing, professional, and adaptable to many of the new budget challenges and opportunities that I threw at them all through the spring season. I'm really grateful for that. I have a really talented group of individuals. And I want to note that in any budget process, the budget process starts with the departments. And so they kick it off, they get it going. And again, I just want to recognize their hard work, not only from the department directors and other leadership who are in the audience tonight, but to many of the other staff members who help and assist on our financial management front. In the finance department, I can't say enough. They've worked tirelessly. They've been adaptable, creative, open to trying new ideas, and smart. And with us, I want to recognize Patty Dressen, and in particular, Corey Peterson and Mary Hogan, our finance director, who've all worked extremely, I can't tell you how hard they've worked these last 2 weeks, making sure everything is finalized and I's are dotted and T's are crossed. They've just done a really outstanding job. And again, I want to recognize that, I've challenged them a lot this spring, and they've really risen to the occasion. I'm really grateful for that. So the next steps in the budget process, where do we go from here? So today we have the recommended budget presentation. Next, on May 21st, next Tuesday, we have the budget public hearing that will be at 7 p.m. right here in the council chambers. The next opportunity would be a budget workshop for discussion on May 28th. That will be at 6 p.m. at the Law Enforcement Center on Holly Springs Road. And then what is scheduled is your budget adoption for your consideration to adopt the budget at your June 4th council meeting at 7 p.m. in the council chambers. And I do want to make sure that members of the community, residents and businesses have an opportunity to view this presentation as well as other budget material and ask any questions that they may have and give any input back to the mayor and council as you work through the final stages of the budget process. The budget can be visited at our website at www.hollyspringsnc.us. And a copy of the budget will also be placed with the town clerk that is available for inspection and review. Again, here just the mailing address if anybody would like any additional information, or a phone number you can call to request any additional budget information. And with that, Mayor and Council, I think that concludes the recommended portion at this point. The budget turns over to you all. And I very much look forward to working with you throughout the remainder of the process to help ensure that the budget meets your expectations and it aligns with your priorities. And I'm looking forward to working through that with you. So thank you very much. I appreciate the opportunity.
Just a quick comment. Thank you. And having done, 18 or 19 of these so far and listened to them, I finally understood this one pretty well. Pretty well. I'm not going to take any credit for terrific, but pretty well. I appreciate all the work that was done. It was done well. It was presented well. And thank you all for being a team. Appreciate that. Council, comments?
Yeah, Randy, you said the budget will be available on the website. Is this presentation like this handout that you gave us? Is that going to be on
Yes.
there too?
Yes, the exact copy.
Perfect. Thank you.
Sure.
Other comments?
Congratulations to all of the hard work. I mean, I think the format's great, so a lot of folks can consume it and ask questions in an easier way.
Yeah.
I'm excited about the staff development, because I know that was one thing we talked about last year, was investing in our staff. So great investment into our future and for our town. So I'm looking forward to looking at the details. Great work. You can tell the new folks that were involved. Corey, thank you. Your fingerprints are on here for sure. And I think those new charts are very easy to read. So great
All
job.
that credit goes to
Mary
Corey.
and the team. Awesome.
Yes.
Good job.
Thank you.
Thank you. Others? We're good? We're good?
Ditto.
Right.
Well done.
Yeah.
Anybody from out there have a comment or a question?
I thought this was broken down very well. It was
did too.
so that it will be easier for a layman to understand. It's not just numbers. So.
Right.
That
Thank
would
you
be
for doing
me.
that.
And I do hope those slides related to what value do you receive for that investment.
That's huge.
And when you break that down into a per day and you
Yeah.
start to rationalize what that means and how much services are provided in the community, it just gives you a little bit different perspective.
All I have to give up is 1 cup of Starbucks, right?
Just one cup,
Any bad deal.
right?
Until the
Maybe
county-
2.
the county
Maybe
agrees
2.
with that, give up
Well,
the
if you have more than one person in your household, then
That's right.
less and less, then it's can't pop.
She's a Starbucks fan. Anything else? Need a motion.
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you for coming. Go Canes tonight.